Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar,
I'm Asana Cayetano.
and thank you for joining us this morning.
Monday, the 6th of December, Marlene. We're inching towards the big Christmas Day celebrations that many families will have, but we're still 19 days away.
Well, you have count, right? I was going to say we're somewhere around 20 days, and I was trying to do the mental math, but we are less than 20 days away. Definitely, I know everyone, their household is in full swing.
Yeah.
You've done all the Christmas cleaning and
Not-
the
well,
decorations are up?
The cleaning somewhat, the decorations not as yet. I'm hoping that by the end of this week we should have up the tree and the lights and all of that other stuff.
And is it a full deep cleaning like a true Belizean Christmas?
For the most part.
Walls, paint?
Well, I don't have to paint. That's a good thing, at least not this year. Maybe if what we say I catch head tech, maybe. But in terms of deep cleaning, yes, we've begun that process. That's when you try to get all the cobwebs and all these
Yeah.
other stuff, clean the screens and all that stuff. So yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, I know. And of course, it is the first full week in December, and we are all looking forward to the Christmas ahead. But there's a lot to get through before then. So let's get started with our show. And we, of course, do want to remind you, though, speaking of a very big week for us here at Channel 5, we
It is
start.
Give me 5 week, right?
That's right. Dame
We begin
Cinco,
tonight.
Gimme 5. It really is, I think when this time of year comes around, one of the best parts for me is meeting all the persons who come into the studio.
I was
to fill out
just
the
about to
coupons.
say. Once you see December come around,
Yeah,
the people start questioning, they're inquiring, when does it begin?
yeah.
What can I expect this year, And while we have a designated host for the show, as workers, as employees of Channel 5, we're all approached by people who want to know where they can get tickets, what's the cost of the tickets, or what they need to do in order to get in the barrel and that sort of stuff. And so it's a warm feeling to be able to do that kind of meet and greet, because it's not only here at the office that you would meet people, but when you go out on assignments or when you go about your daily stuff, people do approach and ask.
And everybody asked the favor, please bring me some coupons.
Yeah, that too.
No, and that's just it. When they do come in, because they have to physically bring in the coupons, I do, it's fascinating, one, that people are coming from all over the country
Yes.
to deliver their coupons, and just how much of a part of their Christmas tradition it is. Like,
Yeah.
this is what kickstarts the Christmas season for them and for us here at Channel 5 as well. Gimme 5 is, of course, a long-standing tradition. It is how we celebrate our anniversary.
Yes, that's the other big thing, right?
That's right. So 30 years ago. So I try to imagine what these days would have been like the past 30 years ago with the team under Stuart Crone preparing for that first newscast.
Yeah. Well, we have a clip somewhere that I've heard of. I keep hearing about it. I haven't seen it as yet.
Yeah.
But I know that there's a clip where there was what we call a dry run for the first
Yeah.
newscast. And then there was the actual first newscast. And that sort of, jump started what would become our flagship show, or our flagship program, I should say, here at Channel 5.
Yeah, definitely. Breaking grounds at that time. And we are, of course, going to be telling you more about that. We will be having a number of things that will be rolled out with this anniversary, one of them including a documentary looking back at those past 30 years from the start to now. So that you'll hear about all the craziness that happened in the early years. And look at it. It's,
There we go.
see, and this is the part for me that I absolutely love. A look back, not just at Channel 5, but at the country itself
Yeah.
as it grew.
We've come a mighty long way.
Yeah. That's a reporter, then that was actually a promo looking at,
Keeping you informed.
yeah, there we go. That's,
Delroy Kelvin, yeah.
Debbie Scott and Holly Agel, along with anchors Alice Smith and Ernesto Vasquez, weeknights at 6:30 and 11. News 5, it's real life, up close. Don't miss it.
And of course, our theme song has remained the same for the past 30 years, right?
well, we have a lot of trivia coming up too in our celebration for anniversary. And one of my favorite tidbits is always knowing that the late great Andy Palacio was the one who put that music together for us, which we still use today. I know people who use it as their ringtones, so it is fascinating to see. But like I said, we'll be having that documentary where you can take that look back along with us as we celebrate our 30th anniversary. But in the meantime, Gimme 5 starts tonight, and we do encourage you. There's always that second day bump where people are like, oh, I thought it was next week, and then they see the program on, so Tuesday they rush in. Don't make that happen to you, because you're going to miss out on the first night of prizes. So come on in today, get those coupons into our tank, and the most important thing is that when your phone rings tonight, don't say hello, say...
Give me 5. Dame 5.
All right, and in Garfana?
Ruba Sengano. That one is more difficult, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we got our Dan Grega followers, so I got to say that one just in case. And John will be there on set, so he'll be able to translate for the rest of us. But we do look forward to the show, and we have some amazing prizes lined up, so you don't want to miss it. But with that, though, let's get moving into our show for tonight, for today, I should say. And we're going to start off with our eye opener. And our eye opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. In a world where we have routines to get everything done, we rarely have a routine for our spiritual self. In a world where we have routines for nearly everything, our route to work, our physical fitness regimen, and our weekday schedule, it's amazing how many people forget to create a routine for meeting their spiritual needs. We run around in an attempt to be at our many appointments on time and meet our many obligations. In our efforts to be as productive as possible, however, our spiritual needs tend to take a back seat. After all, taking care of our spiritual needs doesn't directly pay the bills or tone our abdominal muscles. We may even wonder who has time to meditate or write in their journal when there are more pressing matters to see to. The truth is that nurturing ourselves spiritually is what gives us the energy and grounding that we need to make sure that our lives stay on track. Having a routine for nurturing your spirit that you can do each day lets you feed energy to your soul and can serve you well in your life if your life suddenly takes an unexpected turn into a difficult period. This kind of routine grounds your spirit in your body so that you stay anchored in yourself as you move through each day.
So, first of all, I think spirituality goes with one's mental health and mental space. I say that because while the eye opener speaks to a certain routine or a pattern and being able to find the time to sort of convene with your spiritual self, in my case, I enjoy walking my dogs in the morning, right? And while it may seem to other passers-by as well, that's mundane or that's an everyday thing that he does or whatever, that is my moment to clear my mental space, first of all. Yeah. That's my moment as well to you know, pray. Pray silently. Like, you would never know because I'm doing my casual thing, but in my mind, I'm going through, you know. And that for me is my routine. Yeah. And, well, somewhat contrary to what the eye opener is saying, I'm setting that. So when I don't do it, then I kind of feel off, right? Yeah. And so I try to find other ways in terms of being able to convene with my spiritual self. Because at the end of the day, spirituality speaks volumes about you an individual and where you're going. Because if you don't recognize within yourself a higher power and being able to celebrate that, then your sense of purpose may not necessarily be, what it is that you're actually pursuing.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I was reading it and I was thinking of you walking your dog. Because as somebody who enjoys getting out in the early morning as well, you are so right. You just kind of see people individually moving by and you think, oh, it's exercise, you're taking care of your pet. But there is something about that quiet space in the morning. Before people start to wake up, before the city comes to life, that you just kind of have your own space to decompress.
Yeah.
And it happens without actively trying to do it. That's the part that really I think is so important, because you're in that space, you're allowed to have time to process your own thoughts or feelings or whatever it is, tap into that spiritual side of yourself or build your self-awareness. And I mean, I know people who are very firm about evening workouts or getting out in the evening, but for me, I just think the morning is the perfect setting.
Morning time is, when you're able to experience the sunrise.
Yeah.
There's a certain sense of quiet.
Yeah.
As they sit there, the country becomes alive gradually. It's serene.
All right, so that's our tip there. But we got to keep things moving this morning and find out more about our weather. We have Francisca Wellington on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, and how are you?
We are doing well. What a beautiful weekend it was.
Yes, it was.
That's right. So you're going to deliver the news that the rest of the week will be the same, right?
That's right.
All right. Tell us all about it, Francisca.
Okay, so we have fair weather continuing, and so today we'll see mostly sunny skies, tonight partly cloudy skies, and showers, if any, will be isolated.
All right. And what about, are we going to have any winds?
Out of the east, 5 to 15 knots, and producing light chop seas.
And the temperatures, they've been pretty comfortable.
Right. It will remain that way, so we'll only be seeing a max of 87 along the coast, 90 inland, 76 up in the Maya Mountains. And then overnight, 77 along the coast, 72 inland, 67 up in the Maya Mountains.
All right. And, or extended forecast?
Okay, and I will extend it. So for the rest of the week, we'll continue to see similar weather that I described.
Lovely. All right.
So I'm giving people the chance to do their painting.
Yes, indeed.
You heard about what we were asking. So you ready for Christmas then?
Ready, like Midnight for Freddy.
All right. Well, we want to see your tree then. We're curious to see how you've been decorating this year. You'll have to send that to us.
Okay, I will.
All right, Francisca. Well, thank you so much for that update today.
You're welcome.
You have a great day.
Thanks. Same to you guys.
All right.
Thank you. So that's good news that the remainder of the week will look exactly how the weekend was in terms of not being too hot, not being too cold, but just the perfect weather.
That's right. Okay, and with that out of the way, we're going to get moving into the Eye on the News.
We begin with the House meeting that was held on Friday. We know that, perhaps I can say, par for the course for this administration, that House meetings usually run long and late, right? And so Friday was no different than what we've become accustomed to. A couple highlights that came out of the House meeting. I think perhaps one of the most important developments within is the fact that over the past 6 weeks, the Bricena administration has come back before Parliament for another supplementary, which means that aside from the budget that was produced or presented and came into being earlier this year, that they're still requesting additional funds to be able to carry out the business of the government in terms of its financial needs and what have you. And it's set against the backdrop that this ought to have been a period of belt tightening in terms of the economic situation and the fact that the government has opted to take stringent measures to try to get things back in order financially. And so that was one of the initial thoughts when they came before the House yet again to ask for another injection, so to speak, of capital, right? That was one of them, Marlene. The other, and I'm just kind of broaching the topic and then we could discuss a bit more in detail. The other is, well, this time of year, constituents usually look forward to getting a little bit of an incentive, so to speak. Under the previous administration, it was called the Christmas Share. Under this particular government, it has another name, but it's much the same in terms of being able to allocate certain monies for area representatives to be able to assist financially with those members of their constituency that are most in need. I think one of the controversies, and this isn't only for this government that is carrying on that tradition, but it has been in place for many years, I would say, in terms of this being used by the politicians to be able to, handle their own, in a manner of speaking. Some say, it's fair and across the board that everyone within the constituency stands to receive this kind of an incentive. Others say, well, it's only friends and close, associates of the area representative who benefit the most from the chair or the incentive. But it's a time of year for giving, and so I guess this is what we come to expect. Some people will ask, some people won't ask, some people will get, and others won't. At the end of the day, I believe as long as there's accountability for the disbursement of these funds, it's earmarked for a particular purpose. If there's the black and white that shows that this is exactly where it went, then it should not necessarily be a problem. It's transparent and there's an accountability there. In the absence of that, then it raises questions.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting when there's an argument more about, changing the name of something that seems to be very similar to what's been carried on by past administrations. Because, when I see it, or when I heard the discussion, for me, I think it was more about the issue of the accountability.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no doubt, and we hear stories all the time, that there are people and families in this country with great need. Yeah. And it's not so much about a handout, it's literally about helping people to survive. Not thrive, survive. So I think the idea of being able to offer assistance to people is something that is understood by many in this country. Yeah. I think the question, though, when it's put in the hands of the area representatives versus through formal systems, like maybe through human services or other agencies that are more aware of what's happening on the ground, I think there always has to be a question about who's doing the vetting for who's receiving what and how much and what that money is being used for. Yeah. And I that's an absolutely fair question in my mind as to being able to ask, how do we know who's getting, being able to equalize what all area representatives are getting, that's also a key factor here. Different from what we saw with the past administration, but I think we, as citizens, as people, whether you vote or not, have the right to ask the question, okay, so who is going to benefit, and how do we know they're the persons with the greatest need? Because
at the end of the day, it's a disbursement of public funds.
That's right.
And the fact that they're drawing from that particular purse to be able to cover these expenses simply means that they need to be able to answer adequately as to how it is being spent. It's the same concern for the supplementary. The leader of the opposition raised that very question in the House on Friday, that, you're coming back for additional monies. That is understood, but you haven't necessarily been able to show us or break down what the previous amount was used for in terms of the accountability issue. So that is always a thing in government when it comes to public monies, as I mentioned before, the idea that there has to be transparency and accountability in the manner in which they're able to go about dispersing the funds. Okay, so that's the first thing. Just wanted to kind of recap what took place on Friday. On Saturday, Destiny Wagner returned to Belize. Destiny Wagner is our Miss Earth 2021, I know that we made that announcement 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and we've been waiting with bated breath, some of us, for her return to Belize. And so that took place over the weekend. I know that there was a scheduled arrival for 6 p.m. on Friday, and then on Saturday there was the motorcade through the principal streets of the city, and there we have our very own Miss Earth 2021 making her rounds through the city streets.
Yeah. You know, just an injection of positivity that we need at this time. I think that we know one thing, that people love following pageants, and every single year, especially around the time of Miss Universe, the country rallies behind. Some are usually very critical as well about our performance, and people carry high hopes about being able to earn an international title. Destiny Wagner was in fact one of the delegates in a previous Miss Universe pageant. Interestingly enough, now that she has participated in Miss Earth, she was able to do what no other, and I think we have to underscore that as much as possible, what no other woman has been able to do so far, which is to bring home that crown. So she's not just our, as in Belizeans, Miss Earth, she is the Miss Earth for everyone, and that's such
Miss
a
Earth
great
universe.
feeling.
Yeah.
And we're so proud of her, and looking forward to hearing more about her story and her journey ahead as to how she'll use the platform.
Definitely. Once again, congratulations and welcome back. All right, so the other thing, and we're keeping on a positive note here,
Yeah.
Puck-ta-puck isn't that popular a sport as, for instance, basketball or football or what have you. It's still a sport that's making its name within the region, more so in Belize as well, right? But the good news is, Marlene, that our Puck-ta-puck team are the world champions, right?
Yes,
they emerged
that's right.
victorious on Friday, having bested several of the other teams across the region that were participating in the annual tournament. And when I think Puck-ta-puck, I think about an award-winning story that we at Channel 5 featured a couple of years ago, where there was the actual process of learning and the preparation of going to these very competitions. I think that last one was in Mexico that we had won the award for. But it's a beautiful thing in terms of being able to keep alive the Maya heritage. This is a sport that was played by the gods, as it's referred to, right? And so you have these individuals who play this sport without the use of their hands or their legs. It's only their hip. As
Listen,
they try to score the
Let me just say, because we've had some of the players on the show before, and I can never forget when they brought the ball. So the ball is about this big. If you think of like a snow globe, or trying to think of something that's similar to that, maybe about the size of a Dutch cheese, a little bit bigger, but it's solid rubber, heavy. And they use their hips to be able to move it around. It takes a skill I don't think any of us naturally have, but they have been able to train themselves to do. And I do want to take a moment to say, of course, big kudos to Ms. Felicita Canton and her team there. This is not just about a competition. This is about a matter of keeping the cultural history alive in today's world. And teaching the young men to participate in the game is one thing, and then it's even better when they're able to go out and best the rest of the countries represented there. So big achievement for us. Check that out. You see that ball?
Well, the thing too, Marlene, that one has to keep in mind here is the pageantry of it all, in terms of the way they're dressed, the paint, the face paint.
Painting.
Everything is reminiscent or particular to how it was done many thousand years ago when this game was being played, right? And of course, these games were played initially at these huge Maya cities, right? The archaeological sites as we know them now.
Of course, and how many of us have not visited the sites and seen the Mayan ball court?
Yeah,
and
precisely.
This is what used to be played there. So I do want to point out that unlike some of the other sports that people religiously follow, they're not wearing any protective gear either. I can't even imagine the bruises. That's what I think of first. But congratulations to Ekbalam, and I hope they get a great warm welcome when they come home for representing us so well.
All right, so there we go. I guess this has been one of the more positive and upbeat Eye on the News, right?
Yeah.
And so definitely, folks, these stories and more we will be covering in more details at 6 p.m. You can catch it live on 5. You can also get our content online via Facebook or YouTube. So that does it for the Eye on the News.
All right, and with that, we're going to get moving into our show for this morning. And our first conversation
is with the Minister of Home Affairs and New Growth. Minister Kareem Musa will be joining us in studio for in-depth conversation on all things that's happening within his ministry and, of course, in the New Growth Industries area.
All right. So that's going to be an extended conversation. And the final conversation we're going to be having today is with a representative from Beltrade. Belize has been participating in Expo Dubai 2020. Yes, we know that was last year. It was scheduled last year, and it now has happened in 2021. But our participation is significant and, of course, gives the opportunity for people from a completely different part of the world to get exposure to us and all we have to offer. So we're going to hear from Beltrade about how it's been going and some of the feedback that they've gotten so far. That's what we have in store in terms of conversations. We're going to take that first break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Minister Kareem Musa. So please stay tuned.
It's almost lunchtime and Alice is getting hungry and forgot to bring cash. She remembers that eCash now has a geolocation feature in which she can easily view the eCash merchants near her, especially restaurants. Her co-workers also ask her to order food for them.
Chicken chow mein, please, and a Coke.
The merchant sends her the payment link. She taps confirm, and within a few minutes, her food is delivered. Alice then views her transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made. Then taps the split the bill button where she selects the unevenly option and moves the bar to the desired amount per person. The request is then sent to her friends. Her colleagues accept the request and are ready to enjoy their meals. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash make Alice's life a whole lot easier.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
I was officially tasked by my work to attend the first barbershop training, and I found out that it's a really refreshing thought. It helps a lot. It gives you a fresh look at life. It gives people a chance to develop. It gives people a chance to grow. It gives people a chance to be themselves, and it helps them to grow as a person. For me, what I took the most from this session was the fact that sometimes we try to give rules and regulation to our kids growing up, like boys shouldn't cry. Certain things are just for girls, certain jobs are just for boys, and we kind of hold back young persons from reaching to their full potential.
It's key for me to understand that gender-based biases are real. It's something that I will take and convert into my knowledge and make sure that I push out when it comes to offering these services here at the Department of Youth Services.
I'll be committing to working with my kids, working with my friends, working with the young persons that I come in contact with to put an end to domestic violence, gender-based violence, and violence against young people on a whole.
Morning, B.
Ready for full layback?
Yes, man. Just grab the rope and I'll put on the camera. My name is Josh Marin. I'm a commercial fisherman out of San Pedro and I've been fishing my whole life. We've been noticing that each and every time we go out, we'll have to find further grounds. So when I heard about the program, I found it as a very good business opportunity. Other fishermen, when they go out, they tend to bring in everything and anything, and that's what me and my crew don't do. We practice responsible fishing.
Just show me how the app works, G.
Easy thing, bro. All we gotta do is we're gonna put in how much fish we catch right here. Today we get 15 pounds of champagne and 30 pounds of queens. We have punch that in and that's all. Oh, one more thing.
Following the COVID-19 vaccination, some people may experience side effects such as soreness at the injection site, chills, nausea, body aches, or a fever. But these symptoms go away after a few days. These side effects are a result of your immune system responding to the vaccine and are not a sign that you are sick with COVID-19. The COVID-19 vaccines will not give you COVID. When you receive your vaccine, the health worker will advise you what to take if you are experiencing any of these side effects. Remember, these mild side effects cannot compare to you not being able to share memorable moments with your family and friends if you fall gravely ill from COVID. Vaccines bring us closer.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We have been joined on set as promised by the Minister of Home Affairs and New Growth Industries. The Honorable Karim Musa is in the building with us this morning. And there's a range of questions we're going to be putting to him. I'm certain that over the past few weeks, as we've been covering the news, you've been familiar with some of the concerns and the issues that are coming up with his particular ministry. And so we'll be getting to that in our discussion this morning. First of all, good morning, Minister.
Hi, good morning, Isania. Good morning, Marlene. Thanks for having me on today.
Certainly. Let's jump right into it, Minister. I think arguably the most pressing issue at this point is the developments within the Belize Police Department. Over the past 4 weeks or so, we've seen illicit activities happen where police officers are allegedly involved. And not only does it give a black eye on the department as a whole, but it raises serious concerns in terms of security, in terms of the degree of involvement of these officers in these illicit activities. And by illicit activities, we're talking primarily drug trafficking. I could recall a retiree was found with a brick of cocaine upon leaving from the training academy of all places, right? And then there's allegations of officers who landed one on the Southern Highway. There's another allegation of officers who were purportedly involved in another landing in the Mountain Pine Ridge area, and it goes on and on. Let's begin there.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, though, Isani, when you say a retiree, it is not a recently retired police officer.
Fair
in
enough.
the one instance. He has long been retired from the department, many, many years. But you certainly have a point there that over the last year, with the police department doing such an exceptional job in catching planes, we are unearthing what all of us have known all along, which is that security service personnel are involved in these plane landings. And Belize is no different. Let us start there. Whenever there is a bust in Belize, you could check our neighboring countries, Guatemala and Mexico. Likewise, security personnel in those countries are arrested as well. And so the cartel has a formula, and that formula includes enlisting the employment of security personnel, whether it is the military, whether it's police officers. And so those are the individuals sought out by the cartels to do these landings, to facilitate these landings. And so I try to look at it from a more positive perspective, Isani, and that is, of the last 4 plane landings, we have foiled one because we were waiting for it on land, but it ended up in the sea, and we are fairly certain that a pilot lost his life in that crash landing. And then the other 2, the one at Bladen and the one at Mountain Pine Ridge, we not only got all of the drugs, but we also caught the culprits. And again, it might be a tough pill to swallow to learn that in fact there were police officers or security service personnel involved with these landings, but I, as minister, I certainly feel proud of the officers who made the bust and who made the arrests. And that is the perspective where I look at it, because we always know this. This is something that has been going on for many years. And so our success rate in terms of capturing the drugs and capturing the culprits, I think, is excellent so far.
Let me put this to you as a quick follow-up. As the minister, don't you find yourself in sort of a quagmire in the sense that you're also an attorney, and so you have first-hand knowledge of how the laws work. So you have officers who are alleged to have participated in these activities. You see charges being brought against them, and in many cases, these officers end up being exonerated from these matters. However, they go back into the service because while they're on interdiction, they're on half pay or whatever, when they're cleared of the charge, they go back to work. But while we know that there's, well, what is called a factual guilt, and being able to prove that in court, for the most part, we know that these people are involved, but we can't really put them on the hook.
Yeah, and that's one of the key differences, Isani, that you will find in our administration when you compare it to the last administration. And not to deviate much, but just to give as an example, I lost my good friend Allison Major at the hands of a police officer. That police officer was tried. He still is on trial for the killing of Allison Major. But when you look at how the police department handled it back then, they never charged him internally. And that is a key difference, and I'll tell you why. Because all of these officers who are being charged with these plane landings, not only are they being charged in a court of law, but they're being charged internally. And if based on the evidence, whether it's circumstantial or direct evidence, well, if that evidence is strong enough at the tribunal, we can take actions as a department to ensure that those officers do not return into our force. And as you saw the other day, about 4 weeks ago, Corporal Martinez, the officer accused of shooting Larry Gillett, the tribunal has found him guilty, but they did not necessarily sanction him to the point of dismissing him. The Commissioner of Police has that authority, having found him guilty at the tribunal, to then overrule and then to dismiss him, and that has been done. So there is an actual procedure, a process that has to take place in terms of rooting out and weeding out the corrupt rogue officers in the department, and we are exercising and employing all our efforts under that procedure, under the public service and security service regulations.
I want to come back to the issue that we are seeing with the now confirmed inclusion of security personnel in the drug trafficking trade. Did you at any point suspect that involvement could potentially involve such top-level officials?
When you say top level, what do you mean? Because you may be incriminating somebody who's not necessarily tied to it. If you're talking about corporals or sergeants, if that is what you're referring to, I would say yes. I would say that I consider everybody a suspect when it comes to these plane landings. And I've said that time and time again, that this, in each instance, has to be an ongoing investigation. We cannot close the book just because we have charged a few officers means that we have closed any investigation. And so we must continue with our investigation. Like I had mentioned, police officers at the last scene of the landing on Bladen had found cell phones, and so they are currently in the process of retrieving data from those 4 cell phones. And if any other officer is incriminated, then of course we will bring charges against those officers. And so it's not limited. We don't think that it's just police constables or corporals or sergeants. It could possibly go all the way to the top.
And I understand your need for being cautious because the matter is still under investigation. But let's push this a bit further in the hypothetical. When strategizing to be able to mitigate the landing of these planes, you must have a core team of persons involved within the ministry itself. What type of vetting takes place to ensure that these persons are in fact as far removed as possible from any linkages to these activities? So
the unit that is actually responsible to address plane landings, there are several teams that go out, but the unit who directs the traffic, so to speak, is the Anti-Narcotics Unit, the ANU. That unit goes through a very rigid screening process, vetting process, that includes a lie detector test. You have to pass lie detector tests, and you have to meet a certain standard to be able to get into this anti-narcotics unit, who works very closely with the DEA here in Belize. And so that is the unit that has coverage that actually investigates, and they're the ones who are investigating the 2 plane landings, the one at Bladen and the one at Mountain Pine Ridge. And I want to say this because a lot of people don't know it. It is because of the intelligence that is gathered by these units that police officers stayed out in Mountain Pine Ridge, you know, for days, because everybody is saying, oh, the drugs already left, the pilot done left. 1 day later, they found the pilot, the injured pilot, and then the day after they found the loot. And so it is that persistence based on intelligence that we're gathering from the ANU that's directing this traffic, that we were able to stick it out, you know, in that rough terrain out there in Mountain Pine Ridge to ensure that we got not just the criminals caught, but also the drugs.
Let me ask a quick question here, just to continue from where you're leaving off. So you've mentioned that the anti-narcotics unit is primarily charged with responding via intelligence to plane landings and what have you. But there has been consistent talk that the former operations commander, his team was also responding to drug plane landings. This would be the commander of operations strike team. Isn't it a situation where you're having 2 groups, one that is sanctioned to do just that, and another that's operating under the command of the assistant commissioner to do the same? You'd have 2 groups converging on one scene. Doesn't that create an issue?
It may create an issue, Isani, but let me explain once again. There are several layers to this. So I explained to you the anti-narcotics unit, which works closely with the DEA. But there's also the Joint Intelligence Operations Center. Now that is the overall command center that deals with these plane landings, that has the radar from the point where it leaves Colombia or Venezuela and tracks the plane. And so there's a lot of coordination that takes place, a lot of intelligence that's gathered. And then there are these strike teams that I think you're referring to. Currently, we have one that is manned by Officer Greenidge. He is now the operations commander. Current ACP Vidal was the operations commander. Now ACP Greenidge is that operations commander. So there has been a switch, and now that falls on the responsibility of Mr. Greenidge, who goes out physically to go after these individuals. So they're on the ground itself.
Now, Minister, I know you're aware, as the commandant of the Coast Guard said right here on this show, that as a member of this joint team, they now have concerns about the information sharing that is taking place. They have to look out for their own integrity of their organization, and given all that has unfolded in the past few weeks, naturally they're hesitant to do so. What's your perspective on this?
I find the comments to be a little unfortunate because, like I mentioned, it's not just police officers that are suspected to be involved in facilitating these plane landings. We have other security service personnel. You could recall the one earlier this year that we caught up the river in the Belize River Valley. There was the driver who is a BDF for the Brigadier General. And so there are other security officers involved, and so we cannot cast this blame against one security service department. Like I mentioned earlier, the cartels enlist any number, so whether it's Coast Guard or whether it is BDF or whether it's police, they would enlist these security officers. And so information sharing between departments has to be has to go on, has to take place. And as far as I'm aware, the commissioner has updated me that he and Mr. Bennett have had a conversation, have had a meeting since, and they have agreed that it has to continue, that the sharing of information, because currently the Coast Guard is in charge of GIOC. So they are the heads. So in terms of enforcement, they have to relay that information to police. So I think it was unfortunate that he made those comments, because there has to be that unison. We have to work together.
Unfortunate, but perhaps a bit understandable, because there is an absolute broken trust.
Like I say, we can do that both ways, but I don't think that is necessary. We can say the same about other security service personnel, but there's no use in going about it that way.
Let's touch on the issue of the former commander of operations. He is scheduled to return from personal leave sometime soon, but a recommendation would have by then been put forward to the Security Services Commission for his suspension. What can you share with us in respect of your knowledge of what's been going on with ACP Vidal?
Well, as has been said time and time again, I think this is important to say, in terms of the criminal investigation, there is nothing that links ACP Vidal to the landing at Bladen. So that is essential for us to make that point. But we have to understand that there appears to have been administrative failures on his part. It cannot be that your entire strike team is out there facilitating the landing of a plane. As commander, did you know where your personnel were? As commander, how did they get these rifles if they are government-issued rifles? As commander, how did they get these vehicles? So there appears to be certain administrative failures. I cannot go into in-depth information on that, but as far as I'm aware, that internal investigation has wrapped up. It will be forwarded now this week, I am told, to the CEO, who will then forward it to the Security Service Commission requesting the suspension of ACP Vidal. So that is as far as I can go in terms of that investigation.
Well, separating from that issue, I think this has always been a question. One, if you are not actively on duty, you should not have possession of your rifle, vehicle, and there should be some sort of log returning system.
Absolutely. And that is the type of administrative failure that this internal investigation was focusing on. And in particular, Officer Na was found in possession of ammunition that he ought not to have since he was off duty. So that again, on Elmer Na's part, is an administrative failure, and on the part of his superior, which is ACP Vidal, if that is the case.
You would accept, however, and it's a question that I've put to other lawyers who have found crafty ways of batting it down, but you would accept that this situation presented somewhat of a catch-22 for ACP Vidal, right? Because the idea or the question of complicity becomes a part of this. If you know and you don't do anything, perhaps you equally as guilty or culpable. If you did not know, when it's your responsibility to know, then you're asleep at the wheel. So either way, you're facing some kind of a sanction.
Yes, exactly, Sani. And that is what we're referring to as acts of omission on his part, being the superior officer in this instance. It's just that one particular route does not entail a criminal charge, whereas the other, you may be disciplinary charge within the police department. So that is the route that we're looking at.
But let's look at this for what it is. a major black eye for the police department.
See that you all say that time and time again.
At a time, well, I mean, when you were
Do,
in opposition.
do you not agree
But
that?
can I just say this? When you were in opposition, you said the same.
Yes, it
So
was
let's-
because we
let's-
didn't catch them.
Let's look at this for what it is.
Yes.
And I think that no matter who is at the helm, whatever
Mm-hmm.
minister is in charge, I think people have expectations of what the police department should
Mm-hmm.
represent. And any time that image is broken, people have, we all as the public say, well, what else is going on?
Yeah.
So I want to use that as the jumping point to say, how do you restore in the public the fact that there is an active campaign to be able to weed out persons who are involved in any form of illegal activity, from police brutality to drug trafficking?
Yeah. One of the first things that I said when we were taking office, Marlene, because we knew that all these issues existed, but we had to address them. And there is a procedure we have to follow in terms of rooting out these police officers. But restoring the public confidence is absolutely one of my biggest objectives as Minister of Police. And it's unfortunate that in order for it to get better, it must first get worse. I had a constituent meet me over on Friday when I was by Lopez Mateos Park. And he gave me a very neat analogy. And he said, you know what, Minister? It's like we had all these symptoms. We're vomiting, we're bleeding for years. 13 years, let's just use the 13 years as an example. We're vomiting all this while we don't go to the doctor, you know. But when we do go to the doctor after 13 years, after all these symptoms, and the doctor says, I've done exams, I've done tests on you, and they are showing that you have cancer. That is what the results are showing. What does a patient normally do then? They then turn around, oh no, I got cancer, man, and then start blaming the doctor for pointing out all of the issues that they have recognized and that they, the doctor, is dealing with. That is what we're facing right now. We have diagnosed the problem, we have identified the culprits, at least some of them, and we are addressing it. So I understand what you're saying perfectly, that it's a black eye, but we are actually unearthing this evidence. We are actually catching them in the act. Unlike the last administration, which planes were just landing at whim and drugs were moved to America. And so I want to continue to reiterate that I, as minister, look at it from a different perspective, that we are looking at the problem, we've found it, identified it, and we're treating it. And we are addressing these issues within the police department and weeding them out.
Allow me to piggyback on that analogy that you're using. So we're describing a tumor here, right? The cancer itself. That spreads over time if untreated. So we're looking at a systematic failure within the department, because if the cell was there that was undiagnosed over the 13 years, it has only grown. And by it growing, you would assume that it has reached certain, in this case, ranks within the department. If it's growing exponentially, then you're going to notice that it's going to go from the lower ranks, those who are the police constables and the corporals, to maybe the higher ups, as you're saying.
Yeah, well, that's why it's important to extract. Similar to a cancer, Isani, you have to extract it. And so once we identify it, we extract it. If there is information, it has spread to other parts of the department, we have to focus there as well and extract as well. It's going to take time, but I can already see a difference, Isani, in terms of me as minister starting out November 16th last year. 1 year later, I can personally see a difference. I can see a difference in the new crop of police officers that are coming out. Squad 95, which will graduate in just 2 weeks on December 17th. I am excited because this is the first group of individuals, 225 of them. All of them have high school or higher. Some of them have bachelor degrees, associate degrees. All of them passed their exams. So it wasn't based on any ministerial intervention and say, hire this one for me, hire that one for me. And they didn't have that very basic discipline or learning or understanding. And so I have a lot to be thankful for as minister, that I didn't get that type of pressure from my colleagues to say, listen, the 225 guys, let me just load it up with all our cronies per se. we didn't do that. We're doing things differently, and that's why I have a lot of hope. And that represents, Isani, 10% of the entire police population, because we only have 2,200 officers. So that's a huge injection of educated young men and women that will be representing the police department, and can definitely turn this page where we're looking at the past and rooting them out and dealing with it as we move forward.
How bound are you by the Public Service Act in terms of being able to weed out the so-called rogue officers? I know that perhaps you're confined to a great extent from being able to carry out what you would call as the extraction process.
Well, we are all bound by it, Isani, but the point remains, under the Police Act, the Commissioner of Police does have the authority to overrule any sanction that may be imposed by the internal tribunal if finding somebody guilty. That does not mean that is the end of the process, because even when a commissioner dismisses a particular police officer, that officer has the right to appeal. That is natural justice, and we have to respect that process. So they will appeal to the Belize Advisory Council, and then we see where it goes from there. But we feel very firm in our commitment that we are doing the right thing in all of these instances.
I just want to circle back before we move on from this. There's so much more to discuss. I hear it very often from yourself, from your commissioner, that in fact you see the detection of the planes that have landed as a marker of success. But what is this the marker that you are using? What's the comparison that you make to give yourself that pat on the shoulder to say we're doing better now?
You have to understand, Marlene, our geographical size as a country. We are wide open compared to those other more populated, densely populated communities in Guatemala, in Mexico. We are wide open geographically, and so there's a lot of open space where these landings can take place. We have very limited personnel, like I mentioned, 2,200 police officers. Of course, only a very small fraction of that is dedicated at night to be chasing planes. And so we have a lot to be thankful for with such a huge geographical size, with such limited personnel, to know that of the last 4 plane landings, we have successfully, I would say, dealt with 3 of them. So to me, that is a huge success. I don't like to compare myself or our work as a department to the last administration, because they barely caught any planes, and the ones that they did caught, they did not even realize. They were clueless to the fact that 4 military personnel lay dead at the bottom of the sea, and they were having a press conference. So that just goes to show the level of their disorganization when dealing with plane landings. And so I don't like to compare to them, but at the same time, I feel that we have been having great success. And to think of it, it's not necessarily an issue for Belize. We're fighting an issue that's for the United States, because those drugs are not destined for here. They're destined for the United States, but we at the same time have an international obligation to do the best that we can to secure our borders and to secure our territory. And that's exactly what, in my opinion, we've been doing to the best of our ability, given the limited resources.
Will you be updating the public, as you said, that the investigation into the last incident and the involvement of Vidal, will you be doing a public update as to your findings?
Of course. Like I said, during the course of this week, we are expecting the internal investigation to be delivered to the CEO of the Ministry of Home Affairs, and from there, the request then goes to the Security Services Commission. In terms of the investigation itself and the findings, I believe that is information that should be public knowledge. And so I think we can share that with you once we have it.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's look at other areas within the police department. I know you've mentioned the new recruit that will, the new intake, sorry, that will be passing out in 2 weeks. What other strengthening measures are being put? I know, one, the public image is something that you're going to have to work on continuously. That is one aspect. What other areas are there that you're looking at to be able to strengthen the capacity of the police department, given all the challenges and restrictions it's facing?
Well, one of the things that we have certainly done as a new administration is to implement greater community policing efforts. And we are already seeing the benefits of that. ACP Rosado has been working very closely with me for the last 8 months or so, at a time when our Prime Minister and the Minister of Economic Development and their economic team was dealing with our blue bonds, was addressing the economic situation. We as a department have been strategizing, forming partnerships with the Leadership Intervention Unit. And so we are seeing greater dividends today now more than ever. And I'm happy to say that tomorrow will be exactly 1 month since we had the last gang-related shooting in Belize City. I think that took place on Vernon Street on November 7th. And so what we have done is we have teamed up with the Ministry of Youth. Minister Kevin Bernard is fully on board. The Ministry of Human Development, Minister Dolores is fully on board. And a cadre of other ministers uniting with the Leadership Intervention Unit to implement this multi-sectoral approach to addressing crime, particularly on the south side of Belize City. I saw your news station did excellent coverages, I think for 2 nights, on this particular phase 1 of this project, which is getting these young men to be more civic-minded, cleaning up their community for a small stipend. It's going a very long way because a lot of these young men just want that opportunity in life. They've been neglected and abandoned for so long, whether by their families or whether by politicians, to just know that they can earn a dignified living. And at the same time, cleaning up their community is an excellent initiative. It's some 230 of them that are actually working. But it doesn't just stop there. That's just the start of it, because there's a lot of healing that actually has to take place, a lot of therapy. And so the second phase of this, which starts next week, we're taking in groups of 50 to Mountain Pine Ridge for a 1-week counseling, what you would call healing process really for these young men, because they're going to be given skills training in various skills, entrepreneurial skills, and of course conflict resolution, which is huge. And we're actually working very closely as part of this project with the University of Belize and some of their students. So I'm very thankful, and I want to thank them for reaching out to the Leadership Intervention Unit to work along with us in terms of this violence interruption. Because moving forward, you know, we have to interrupt violence before it erupts. I know traditionally, in years gone by, we would wait until violence erupts, then bring all these very angry men together and try to mediate. That's not the time for us to mediate, because they're all angry with each other. It's a very volatile situation. And so it's a step-by-step process to have these individuals, these trainers and these social scientists actually on the ground, engage with these young men to interrupt violence even before it rears its ugly head. So that is kind of the strategy that we're implementing, and so far there's been goodwill on the part of the police department. The Belize City Council has been doing a great job with us as well, and like I said, all the other ministries, and of course these young men and women who are just seeking out an opportunity, and so they've expressed goodwill as well in terms of this process at this point in time.
Yeah. And what's the support like from other ministries as well? As you are aware, very often these are the breadwinners for households.
Yes.
So removing them for anything, state of emergency or counseling session, that takes away source of income.
Yes. Well, the support we've gotten from the other ministries has been exceptional. Like I said, the Ministry of Youth and Sports is fully engaged. We have the Director of Youth Services, Mr. Kevin Cadle, who is on the front line with Mr. William Dawson of the LIU, and of course with ACP Rosado. And so it's sort of like a real combining of efforts. Everybody coming together, realizing this huge problem and trying a different approach and a different strategy, which, like I said, I think it's been something that we have preached for a long time in opposition. Yeah. I know time and time again this is something that I called for as a member of the opposition, and I'm just glad to be a part of it, to see that there are others who believe in this process and believe that it can work out for the greater good.
But it does take time.
Yes.
And I think that that's perhaps one of the things that you will find yourself in the near future having to remind people.
Yes. Yes.
Because while you do the intensive work of trying to rehabilitate people, there will be crimes that will happen in the meantime.
Of course.
So it's dual enforcement while you try to mitigate.
It is. it is moving forward going to be an issue, because you cannot eradicate crime altogether. We're not naive to think so, but certainly if we're able to reduce the number of crimes and to rehabilitate a number of these individuals, then I could say we can claim success after a period of time. And so there will be slippages. There will be times when there will be a murder. We have to expect that. It's not an overnight shift like you're saying, Marlene. And so we know that it's a long walk back. It's a long journey back, because it's been years and years, like I've said time and time again, from the 90s of having 4 gangs, we're now to 28 gangs. And so the reform and rehabilitation process is going to take time. As much time as it took to build it there, we'll have to walk it back and get these young men, like I said, opportunities that they so need, land that they so need. These are things that they've never been given, like I said, whether by family or politicians. And that's why this new approach is refreshing for them, because they can see now there is actual hope. So I'm in it for the long haul. I know that there will be slippages over time, but at the same time, we are committed, and we will not let those slippages deter us.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me just, as we quickly run out of time, I want to touch on some other things. We started our show this morning talking about some of the developments in the House. One of it is the constituency development program, yes. What some are saying the PUP version of Christmas cheer. So on a point of accountability, Minister, when you do receive these funds, what's your plan, and how do you decide who gets assistance?
Well, the Community Development Fund was the brainchild of Honorable Julius Espat from the last administration. It's something he presented in the National Assembly, and it's now coming to fruition, which is an excellent initiative. Every month, each constituency receives $15,000 to do community projects. In particular, Caribbean Shores, we have been rehabilitating Lopez Mateos Park with our first 2 months of the Community Development Fund. So we've resurfaced the basketball court, we're putting in goals, we're putting in bleachers, we're putting in swing sets, we're fixing the fence. So it's an overall beautification of Lopez Mateos Park, and I plan to do that with other parks in my constituency as well. But moving now into the month of December, it is well known, Marlene and Isani, that this has been a very difficult year for Belizeans all across the country. And so that particular fund will be increased, and not just limited to PUP politicians. It will be for all members of the National Assembly. So members of the United Democratic Party will be receiving the same amount that members of the People's United Party government will be receiving. And so it's very fair when you look at it compared to how they handled it in the past. And I know there is some criticism. I was listening to you guys earlier to say, well, why area representatives? Why not put it through different departments? I think that area representatives know who their people are and know who their people in need are. And they have teams. We all have committees that go out on the ground that can deliver these goods. And at least in my constituency, I don't get the complaint that, oh, I didn't get. We make sure we get to everybody, regardless of red or blue. We do not play politics in Caribbean Shores. And so I know for my part, I know there's transparency and accountability. We provide all receipts to the FinSec in terms of the spending of our money. So, and I understand that that is likewise expected of each and every constituency, that they provide these receipts and they provide accountability for this money.
Now, you know, just looking at it from a larger picture here, when you talk about area representatives receiving equal funds, it brings us back to the issue of redistricting. You're talking about violence on the south side. Some of these constituencies will get half in value what your constituencies will have access to, just based on the number of voters that are registered.
And many
will argue that the needs are more.
Yes, but it's not a lot less. They'll be getting a very substantial portion, and it does not, how to say it, it's not reciprocal per se, commensurate. It's actually just a very small dip in the number that they will be getting. So they'll be getting a substantial amount of money to help a very small group of individuals. But like you said, on the south side, where we're targeting, we actually have as part of our multi-sectoral approach the issue of grocery bags in these particular communities that we'll be doing on a monthly basis, and that will not be handled by politicians. That will be handled by the Leadership Intervention Unit under the guidance of Mr. William Dawson. And so he knows who the individuals individuals are. And so not only do we get the assistance from area representatives, but we also get the assistance from the leadership intervention unit. So it's a real deliberate, targeted attack that we're doing on the south side of Belize City to uplift the lives of these individuals, like I said, who have been neglected and abandoned for so long.
Is this separate from the Ministry of Human Development program?
Yes,
it sounds like duplication here.
It is. A lot of these individuals don't receive from the Ministry of Human Development. As you know, that number has been cut back over time, but there is a greater need for more grocery bags on the south side of Belize City, hence the reason why the Leadership Intervention Unit will also be targeting that on the south side as well.
Now, in the interest of time, I do want to move on to New Growth for a moment, but just 1 year later, Minister, you know, it definitely is a time where many of the ministers are reflecting on what accomplishments they've made and even acknowledging where they feel they fell short. Let's talk about your analysis as to how you felt you did in your first year.
I believe far better than Jules gave me credit for, I think. Like I said, he didn't give me an F, which is a good thing, and I've said it time and time again that it's going to be a very long journey back, but we have the long-term commitment in place. I've seen where we have made great strides as a department. We're doing an excellent job, and I just want to take the opportunity because in times like these, when there is low public morale, everybody gangs up. It's like a frenzy. Everybody gangs up on the police department and they cast this brush on everybody. And there are a good 90 to 95% of good, solid, hardworking police officers out there that we are tainting with this brush for no reason, because they're hardworking individuals. And yes, they always say that the good suffer for the bad, but those police officers who are out there on the grind, keeping us safe and secure at night, they deserve our thanks. And as minister, I always tell them, thank you so much for your hard work that you put in for us Belizeans. And so I can see where we are turning the page, we're turning the corner here as a ministry. And I look forward to 2022 if we can continue with these projects that we're implementing, that it's going to be a much better year compared to this particular year. And when you look at it, Marlene, police officers have been cut 10%. Our ministry has been cut 20%. And even with all of that, the fact that we now have to enforce these statutory, the SIs, the regulations in terms of wearing masks, police officers have added responsibilities, added obligations on them, and they had to deal with the 10% cut, and they're chasing planes at night. Yeah. And when you look at that this year compared to the last 13 years in terms of murders, is better than all those years. So even
well, you know that's a difficult measure because we have a curfew in place.
We had a curfew in place under the UDP as well, and they actually had a state of emergency for 3 months. They had locked up individuals for 3 months. So there are different things.
But you will accept that perhaps the better measure as to how we're doing is when the countries, when people are allowed to move freely 24/7.
I would want to still differ with you on that, because if somebody wants to commit a crime, they do it before the curfew. They move it up. Trust me, they move it up. Broad daylight killings in some instances. And so I don't necessarily look at the curfew as being any sort of impact on crime per se. But certainly, like you said, maybe a truer picture we can have once the curfew is lifted.
Let me ask a question here. On the 13th of December, if I'm not mistaken, there will be a new measure that will come to force in respect of officers, public officers. I would want to think it includes police officers as well, to be, if not fully vaccinated, at least having had their first shot as a matter of a mandate. Can you speak to us on that from your ministry's perspective?
Yes, we in the police department, we have over 90%, I think it's around 93% receiving their first vaccination. And so the others, I'm sure, will be coming along before December 13th. I haven't heard of any police officer deciding that they will give up their job and go home in opposition to or in protest to this particular vaccination. I have not heard that. And so we do feel that by December 13th, we will have our total population vaccinated, at least with the first dose. It's been something that the Ministry of Health has proposed for many months now. I think it was way back in August that they announced that by December 1st, we would hope to have everybody in the public service vaccinated. And so it's just a matter of extending that to December 13th, like you said, to have this vaccination in place.
Yeah. Well, let's take this time before we run completely out of time to focus on the new growth industries, because very early on the conversation got kick-started with marijuana, or I should say cannabis, I'm sorry, and the potential growth we could have in that industry. And things seem to have stalled for a bit. What's happening, Minister?
Some people said we went too fast. Some people said we're going too slow. It's all a matter of perspective, I guess. I like where we are in terms of that legislation. I would have hoped that it would have passed in the Senate. But as far as I'm aware, it now goes to a Senate committee that wants to make, I'm told, very minor changes to the legislation. And so it got very good support in the House of Representatives. The Honorable Shine Barrow supported it. The Honorable Tracy Tager-Panton supported it. And I believe to some degree the leader of the opposition also supported it. Because it's a piece of legislation that is necessary given the quandary that we are in, whereby you can have 10 grams in your possession, but you have to go through a very illicit acquisition all the way from Mexico or the United States of these drugs, trafficking illegally through the country before reaching to the individual. And so we're just looking to regulate that industry and to create a new industry for Belize, whereby the government gets its fair share, the business people can get their fair share, and of course incorporating a lot of the existing players in Belize City and other parts of the country, the existing players in the industry. So I'm very optimistic as to where we are, and I think that early on in the new year the legislation should pass, but that does not mean that the next day everybody can grow marijuana. It's not that kind of thing that's happening, and that was one of the concerns raised by the churches when I met with them. They don't want it to be that kind of prevalence, and I understand that fully, because it still will be illegal for you to smoke out in public. You have to be on somebody's private property, and they have to give you permission in order to smoke on their private property. And so these are the types of things that people have to understand with the industry moving forward come next year, but it's going to take some time. I figure that by the end of next year, we should be seeing some economic benefits for the country.
Do you feel that you have successfully been able to get the Council of Churches on board?
I don't think you could ever get them fully on board, but I will say this: we had an excellent meeting, an excellent engagement, and their biggest concern was we just want a proper education process to kick off, which I have assured them that it will be, and we don't want it to be in the hands of minors, which is why we're saying that in order for you to consume any form of cannabis, you have to have your ID card, and we have moved that age from 18 to 21 years old, and so they were very grateful for that move as well, that we moved it to age 21, so they don't want it in the hands of young people. So that was their big concern. But overall, like I said, it was a very meaningful, productive engagement that we had with all of the bishops present. We had that meeting, I think, in October or September of last year. Excellent meeting. But obviously, they can't come out and say, we will support this thing. It hasn't been done. But in other countries, the churches actually do not object to it either. In the United States, there's not an opposition coming out from the churches. But we are a more conservative society, so it is expected here.
And while the reframing of the legislation continues in the Senate, what's happening on the ground in looking at who will be the players involved? The last conversation we had about this, we talked about looking at cooperatives or community groups getting involved in the business, and how do you equalize it with investors?
Yeah, it's going to be a particular balance that we'll have to strike, Marlene. Like I said, we have to find a way to incorporate the existing players in the industry, especially as dispensaries moving forward. They may not necessarily have the know-how when it comes to cultivation, because there is an art and a science when it comes to cultivation. But those individuals who are currently dealing, so to speak, we can certainly incorporate them as dispensaries. So moving forward, we have to have the the cooperative mindset when it comes to cultivators, as well as those players in the dealing that we incorporate them as well. So it's hard to say who all will be players. I could tell you that hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals have come to me saying they want to get into it. They don't have any they don't have any experience in it, but they want to get into it. So there's a lot of excitement, and that's a wonderful thing. But we certainly have to create some sort of balance moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, Minister, you know, if we learn from Jamaica, there are lots of people who see green, not necessarily marijuana, but dollar signs, who want to get involved. But there has been an unofficial industry, illegal as of today, that's been working behind the scenes. And in Jamaica, for example, we know that the challenge they faced was that it was foreigners that came in that did most of the investment, because there is a cost associated. Licensing will have to be very strict, which will also have a cost, which boxes out a lot of your main players currently.
Well, that's the whole point of having the social equity license. We will, of course, have the big licenses, but of course, for the small farmers, we have to have a social equity license. And that is one of the aspects of our legislation that other jurisdictions are saying, see, we didn't do that with our legislation. And a lot of the small farmers were boxed out. And so they are lauding our legislation to recognize that that's an important aspect, to include the farmers who are currently involved, to have them fall under this social equity license. So that is something that the experts per se in Jamaica, I've been in touch with a lot of them, especially in the Rastafarian community, who have said this is an excellent thing that you're doing here in Belize. So I look forward to definitely having that aspect come to light.
Would the social equity license include the other small players, not necessarily the farmers, but those who will be selling? Because at this point, you don't go to a wholesaler to buy a catch. You go to your door on the street corner or whatsoever, and he's a small player at that point. Does the social equity license include these individuals? If you're looking at creating a level playing field for the big investors and, of course, the small retailers?
100%, Isani. When you think of the social equity license, you have to factor in that currently all of the dealers in Belize City and other parts of the country are importing marijuana from Mexico and the United States. It cannot be a situation where we will have those individuals compete with Belizean grown marijuana. And so the dispensary issue will have to go out to all of these current players. And so we have to set up that structure moving forward. It has to be a structure of accountability, though. It cannot be that you will not pay your taxes. And so if it is that you're going to set up shop in your communities, you have to understand fully that you will not be importing marijuana from Mexico and the United States any longer. You can only sell locally grown marijuana in your communities. And of course, you have to pay your fair share of taxes. Those are three essential components. And of course, there has to be, the crime has to be tied to that as well. There has to be a continued commitment that we will not be pursuing this criminal activity. No more guns on the streets, no more killing one another over turf wars, because that could affect your license if it is that a particular dispensary is warring with, and that could definitely upend your license and have it cancelled. And so moving forward, that is something as minister that actually triggered me to say this is something that we need to solve in Belize City, because it has been a source of such warfare for so long. But at the same time, we have to put in place measures to ensure that we can all get along, get a piece of the pie. Everybody can be a part of it, but at the same time, they have to respect each other and they have to pay their fair share of taxes.
Now, the cannabis conversation has kind of usurped the entire concept of new growth in industries, but surely the ideas go beyond that.
Yes.
Tell us about other things that are emerging.
Well, excitingly, we have, of course, the National Cohoon Industry, which is the brainchild of Mr. Rudy Castillo. That is certainly in its infancy. We're putting all the operating structures in place, setting up a working group of all the ministries coming together to assist this particular project. And then, of course, we have another exciting project, which I hope to be released next year, along with Tesla Foundation. in terms of the construction of energy efficient homes. With this Blue Bond achievement and with the Nature Conservancy, Belize has been getting a lot of attention worldwide for our best practices when it comes to saving the environment. And so we've attracted groups like Tesla Foundation who want to use Belize as a hub to build these energy efficient homes, whether they're low income or middle income homes. And there is tied to it an entire educational aspect. And so when they come in, it's just not to build homes. They're going to build a school to teach young people how to build these energy efficient homes. So there's an entire process tied to this. And of course, if it takes off, we can then supply homes to Central America and to the Caribbean under CARICOM. So that's an exciting new initiative. And we're also at the moment looking at bamboo industry. And we've met with a group, I think about 4 weeks ago, the Minister of Agriculture and myself met with a group that is looking to hire or contract out to small farmers 25,000 acres to do bamboo farming in Belize. So small farmers will be able to benefit from the growth of the bamboos and then taking it to the manufacturing mill where it will be processed there, which will then be converted into tissue. So it's a lot of exciting new opportunities on the horizon for new growth industries. But like you said, oftentimes it gets bogged down in cannabis conversation.
It becomes the cannabis portfolio, no?
Yes.
All right, and of course, anything else you'd like to share with our viewers before we close?
Well, I just want to take the opportunity, Marlene, I'm actually wearing red today, sitting in front of the Christmas tree, to wish all my constituents in Caribbean Shores and of course all of Belize and the diaspora a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, we thank you for coming in to have this conversation today.
And thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be hearing from Beltrade about Belize's participation in Expo Dubai. Please stay tuned.
For the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
With RF&G Insurance, you can request a quote, renew a policy, purchase a policy, and even file a claim effortlessly with WhatsApp. Here's how. WhatsApp the words "Get Started" to 670-8700. We will prompt you to select the service that you are interested in. Select the service and answer a few simple questions. An RF&G representative will process your request and follow up with you when your transaction is completed. It's that easy. Skip lines and WhatsApp us. Remember, it pays to get it right with RF&G Insurance, a Road Group company.
The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
The Energy Digital Art Competition was one of those activities selected to celebrate Energy Month here in Belize. This way, we would get an insight into their perspectives of the energy sector, what it was, what it is, and what they envision it to become.
It's just coming together collectively as a country among all the other countries to preserve Mother Earth so we could be sustainable in the future.
What I was trying to portray when I was drawing this was like a symbiotic relationship between nature, because Belize are like all nature. Our national symbols are like flora, fauna, animals, and they're still alive, they're not extinct. And how we can live together, but at the same time protecting what we have. So if we can use solar power from the sun and wind power from the breeze, which we have sun and breeze, then together with the hydro, in my mind, there should be a way that we can lower our grid power usage, our crude oil usage, and be a little more mindful about what we have and how we can protect it.
The name of this art piece is Sob Ombra Forero. As you might understand, it's the same code that we have on our national flag. So the main idea is to create this bridge in between the past and the present, and eventually, hopefully, the future. As you can see, I have some elements of the flag, like the persons inside used to be the woodcutters back in the days, 18th to 19th centuries. And it was the cutting of mahogany tree and exported towards the European Union. So presently, we have, well, here you can see a gardener and engineer in this case, which is the theme of conservation and having renewable energy from this present time in hopes of having a better future, I must say. And there's a detail that I'd like to mention is the coat of arms. I put extra scratch marks on it. It's not really something very, serious, but it is to represent the crisis that we're currently in. You know, the financial crisis, the health crisis, and even environmental crisis in this case. As you can see, I arrange it in a certain way to have a better representation of our Belize flag. So these are just the two examples of renewable energy. I know there is the dam as well that we have in Belize.
Climate change is the main topic amongst the world leaders right now. So all of us are trying to input our ideas of having sustainable future here on Earth. Everything has to come down to preservation and conservation. And these types of energy sources are very renewable, and it's like we don't have to be causing pollution, so we will minimize our carbon footprint here in the world, and we could eventually just transition from the old methods to these energy efficient and clean energy sources.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
Welcome back. Our second segment, our discussion this time around is with the Deputy Commissioner of the Expo Dubai, Belize. She is Nikki Agustin, and she is also in Dubai. Good morning, Nikki.
Good morning or good evening from Dubai. How are you guys doing?
We're doing okay. We're doing great, actually. It's a little bit after 8 o'clock here in Belize, so everybody's in work mode. I'm assuming that you're still in work mode where you are as well.
Still in work mode, 10-hour difference. So yeah, we're working until we have 4 more hours at the pavilion.
Talk to us about Expo Dubai 2020 and Belize's involvement in being able to showcase everything that we have to offer to all of those people, not only in Dubai, but in Saudi Arabia and all those other areas.
Right. Of course, for Expo Dubai 2020, we have about 192 different countries that are here, and they have different pavilions. And as you mentioned, Saudi Arabia, of course, is one of the countries that we have interest in. We have interest in Qatar. Of course, we have interest in Dubai, considering we signed an economic cooperation agreement with them. But I think this is an excellent opportunity for Belize because it gives us all these countries in one place. So we don't have to spend to reach Qatar when Qatar is pretty much coming here to us. So that's part of what we're doing here. We're not only showcasing Belize for people, products, and place, which we do have products from locally made products that are here for display, and we do sampling. Of course, tourism is big for Belize, so we're also showcasing that, but we're also looking at investments and trade.
Now, can you tell us a bit more about the opportunity that Belize has in being able to showcase there? The exhibition should run for 6 months, right?
Yes. 6 months. So what happens is that within that 6 months, of course, if you notice, people will be passing in. We have visitors who come into the pavilion. So one of the questions that we get asked most is, where is Belize? And so we actually created an entire "Where is Belize" sign just so that we can help people kind of navigate where along the landscape. Because we say Mexico, and everyone knows Mexico. And then we're like, we're that little country right below. But then these are the wealth of different things that we have to offer. So we've had people, of course, we've had about maybe 2.5, sometimes 3,000 visitors to our pavilion a day. So if you're looking at that, then you're actually bringing more attention to Belize as a country for tourism. But we also have several meetings that we've been having. We have meetings coming up with the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and, of course, with exports. So there's that other aspect of it also that is very, very important for Belize.
What has been, perhaps, in your opinion, your time there thus far, been the chief product, if I may, that we're promoting of Belize?
Well, right now we're promoting, because we need products that can sell, have all their license and so forth to sell externally. We're still looking at Marie Sharp. We do have Ancedes, fibers. We do have our juices. And the soursop ones gone just like that. So people are interested in our juices and a lot of the products that we have, the different spices and so forth. So before coming to Dubai for this expo, that's one of the research that we did. What are people looking for? And based on what they're looking for, as you can see, or cacao or chocolate, things like that, then that's kind of what we use here to showcase. But as we're meeting other countries, we find that there are other interests also. And there are certain things that we produce in Belize, like the spices, the nutmeg. Turmeric is doing very good right now. They just received, I think they're also somewhere else that they got export into. So these are things that Belize has, and most of these countries in this area are looking for.
How does this tie into the cultural export? Because I know that you have the different culture groups there that are also promoting Belize on that front.
Right. Well, we had the Garifuna Collectives come, and they were supposed to do performances. Unfortunately, that didn't happen this time around. But we do use our pavilion to showcase other cultures. We have a screen that we teach kids, or we teach adults actually, how to do dances. So we have the Jampuna dance, we have the Mayan dance, we have Mestiza dances, and we play those on screen. And it's an opportunity for people to see the different types of cultures that we have. Of course, we have videos that showcase them and tell you about the different cultures that Belize has. So all that is here in music, in dance, and of course in food also.
Yeah. Now, this expo, as I know, we made the clarification earlier, was supposed to be a part of the 2020 celebration for Dubai's anniversary of their independence. Talk to us a bit about just the support that you've gotten there and also the opportunity of exposure in this part of the world.
Right, because if you know, the World Expos happen every 5 years.
Yes.
But this is the first time that it's happening in this region of the world. So in other parts of the world, it has been happening. Considering that, now you have the opportunity to kind of bring your country to people in this region. And if we know better, we know somebody in this region very rich. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we have the opportunity to bring Belize into this region and showcase it. Now, the thing is, Expo 2020 Dubai means that last 2020 was when they were supposed to have the Expo. Of course, branding, it doesn't change. But because of COVID, it was pushed an additional year. And that's why we're in 2021 and it's still Expo 2020 Dubai. But on the ground, it's just been people coming in, wanting to learn more about Belize and what exactly we have to offer in terms of trade. We've had meetings with several different countries, and Japan is already at us for their expo, which is coming up in 2025.
Okay. Now we're seeing images of Minister Anthony Moller there, and I believe that was on the Independence Day celebration. It's also, you know, a great way to just sell Belize as a destination in addition to the products there. Now I know you're Beltrade, but I'm sure this is also opening up tourism opportunities as well.
Definitely opening up tourism. Actually, we've had people who come to the pavilion and say they actually want to move to Belize. So we might be seeing a lot more people from this side in Belize itself. But what you saw was Belize's National Day. Mm-hmm. So each country that participates in Expo 2020 Dubai is giving a national day. And what happens is that on the national day is that you have the opportunity on the world stage for Expo to showcase your country. So you can do the dances, the music, and it starts with an official ceremony. So what you saw was Minister Anthony Moller, who was the head delegation for Belize. He delivered a speech. We also had a speech with one of the ministers from Dubai. And then they went into a courtesy meeting and we were able to tour the different pavilions. So that's how you start to build that relationship with them. Yeah. So it's definitely, one, you're showing Belize on a world stage, and then you have that one-on-one opportunity to say, okay, let's start business. Let's see what's next for Belize.
Now, I know, just looking at some of what has been covered from the expo, I know Chef Sean Queeling was there as well. Talk to us about the participation of other people in this particular initiative.
So what happened, as mentioned, Beltrade has been the organizers for Expo 2020 Dubai. We also were the organizers for Expo Astana. And for National Day, what we would have, that's only one day. So we only get the 30th of November to do this whole cultural exchange thing on that stage. Mm-hmm. But what we wanted to do was have the opportunity for them to taste our food. So we had Chef Sean Queeling was supposed to prepare the sere and the sahau. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, he has a trick to turn sere into caldo and turn it into something else as he was.
Yeah.
So it was like one dish, and he was talking about how he could change this into different things, matching the different cultures in Belize. Mm-hmm. But what happened was that we had members who came in, and then we had positive cases, and then you can't really enter Expo with a positive case. You must be vaccinated or have a PCR test before you enter. So that kind of delayed us a couple of days, and then we weren't able to do as much as we'd like. But we were able to showcase some of the music from the Garifuna collectives within our pavilion itself. So people still got a taste of it. They were here today and they were beating the drums, and they had a good time, and people just stopped by and looked, because once you hear our drums, you know, that's a call to move.
Yeah. I do, you know, I think the products that you have displayed there, I saw some of them, the coffee, the chocolate, the turmeric. These are all products that maybe people don't know we have to offer. Have you also had interest in collaboration, in export opportunities?
So far, we have a meeting that is scheduled for export. We have been conducting meetings, and we have meetings that should run all the way to the end with different countries. We know that Dubai for example, is very important, interested in exports with Belize. And I think that's kind of why we signed the ECA in the first place.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting for that opportunity. Now, of course, there's 100 other countries that also want their spot in line to speak to those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as that comes up, we'll have a clearer idea of what all they want from Belize and what all we have to give. Because we do have pretty much everything. So that's a good thing for us also.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so proud. I'm seeing Fibber's sauce on a shelf in Dubai. Imagine that.
Yeah. No. That's also a promotion for smaller businesses or MSMEs. They are worldwide at this point, and then people who taste it, they're so in love with Belize's stuff. So I think that's kind of why they also want to visit, because I'm telling them this is just a taste of what Belize has to offer. Of course, there were some products like we have our honey and so forth that we aren't able to test at the pavilion. But for those that are testing, they want to buy everything. If they buy everything, nothing but our show.
So wait, you said the turmeric is performing the best.
We have turmeric, we have the juices, all the soursop juice are done. I know that people also look at the health benefits of the soursop fruit. So I think that's kind of why people lean towards it. And the turmeric is also one of those considered a superfood. So the soursop, the turmeric, so all these superfoods that Belize has, and we're displaying here, it's also more reason for people to look at Belize as a place to do business, because then these superfoods are actually making the way around the world. And we have it like in New York, for example, my mom is buying soursop leaves, and we have it at Belize, like it says, toned down.
Yeah.
So how do we turn these things that we have into an actual business that can be exported, whether it's in Dubai, some part of this world, or in the US? So it just has to start somewhere.
Yeah. I love it when you broke into your Creole there, Nikki. What is the reaction when you share the language with people?
People love it. They just want to hear us sometime, and then we just broke up in a Creole now and again, and then they look at us confused, but then they picked up a couple lines. But I think a lot of people who come here, they somehow think that Belize is in Africa and somewhere in that world. And then we're like, no, we're in Central America. And then when we talk and say, oh, you have a Caribbean mix to it. And so Belize's language, because we just, and when we're together and then we're just outside and just, broke up in a Creole, people just stop and look for me. So I think that's a good thing.
There's nothing better than when it's the most unique thing you can hear in a country, right? So yes, definitely.
And sometimes I think that they can still pick up on little things, so we have to get a little more fluent in a Garifuna when we want to talk.
Or you could talk the Brada Creole, right? All right, well, that is great. So what do you think, if you were to summarize, what will be the greatest takeaway from having this presence in Dubai for 6 months?
I think one of the greatest takeaways is that as a country, I know we just came out of the investment summit, and that, a large part of that investment summit is this kind of leads from that in itself. We're looking for investment, we're looking for trade in this area. I think we shouldn't shy away from this part. I know it's a little bit harder, but Belizeans, for one, we have to start to look at the different the policies and the different things that we need to be able to get into these markets, and we have to go for it because they're not waiting. We literally have everything in Belize. It's just now for us to start producing enough to reach over to this side. So I think because one of the things that some of the products that we wanted to bring to Belize, when you're looking at shelf life, for example, by the time it ships from Belize to Dubai, it has already almost reached that expiration date. So there's certain things for us to consider. Other than that, I think each country, I will call out the other countries also, but any country that comes to Dubai, especially for this expo, we have to realize that we have 192 countries in the palm of our hands that are open for meetings, that are open for business, and it's just up to us to reach out to them and make business happen for Belize.
All right. Well, Nikki, thank you for telling us all about what's happening there, and for showcasing for us just a bit. We see some people behind you scoping out what's happening in the pavilion. Yes. So thank you so much for telling us. I see that, and I see the beautiful artwork behind you as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for you and this morning for us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
The Social Security Board, in collaboration with the Labor Department, takes this opportunity to remind insured persons of the requirements for compensation when on sick leave. Any employee who has worked with an employer for at least 2 months is entitled to 16 working days of sick leave with full pay every year. This is how it works. Upon approval of a sickness or injury benefit claim by SSB, 80% of the employee's weekly insurable earnings is paid as a Social Security benefit, and the difference in the employee's salary is paid by the employer. This is to ensure that the employee does not suffer any loss of wages when ill. After 16 days, compensation for sick leave is paid as a Social Security benefit only. Some conditions apply. This message is brought to you by the Social Security Board and the Labor Department. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
We have been a partner with Smart for over 10 plus years. We have a full Smart plan we use as our major driver for our business. We have a service that rolls over in that if you call one and it is busy, it rolls over to the next line. So once you call us, you can get us at any time. Before we got this Smart service, we were paying upwards of nearly $2,000 in phone bills. Since we've had our Smart service, we pay an average of about $600. So we've had tremendous saving, more than 50%. For the businesses, if you want to save money, switch to Smart because it is far more cost effective and the service is excellent.
Smart continues to be innovative in bringing new technology and meaningful savings during these challenging times to businesses across Belize. Sign up for our VoIP technology or broadband packages and save more.
With eCash, bill payment is extremely convenient, and all utility companies accept eCash payments. What's even better? You get to split bills with your roommates, siblings, or whoever you desire. Simply open your eCash app, go to Bill Pay, tap the respective utility company, enter the information, and pay the bill. Then tap the transaction made. Tap Split the bill. Select Evenly. Send the request to who you are splitting the bill with, and get notified when they pay. Talk about making life easy and avoiding confusion. You can split the bill for restaurants, grocery stores, and for any eCash payment you make. To find your next yummy meal, hair treatment, or chill spot, simply open the app and utilize the geolocation service to see nearby businesses that accept eCash. Geolocation and bill payment make life a whole lot easier.
The TV you love is always with you, from live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV, entertainment, anytime, anywhere.
We're back, and of course, we want to say thank you for tuning in today. We had an extended conversation with Minister of Home Affairs and New Growth Industries, talking about the situation within the police force as well.
As well as the updates in the new growth industry.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, as you mentioned earlier in the discussion, we tend to focus solely on his portfolio as the Minister of Home Affairs, and we kind of overlook the fact that he's also responsible for new growth industries.
Yeah.
And when we discuss new growth industries, the cannabis issue has always sort of overshadowed anything else that's happening within that particular ministry. So that when he's talking about the Kuhun industry, when he's talking about energy efficiency in terms of construction and the building of homes, we don't discuss that enough in terms of the scope of his responsibilities and the developments that have been taking place in that area.
Absolutely, and I feel like our second conversation was a good follow-up to that. As Nikki Augustin there in Dubai, she's from Belgrade, but she's at the Belize Pavilion at the Expo Dubai 2020 talking about the interest that people have in some of our lesser known products like soursop juice and what we know are turmeric products, but of course hearing from them about what the interest has been like in Dubai as they showcase all of our products and culture that we are so proud of.
Good show all around today, Marlene.
All right. And we want to thank you for tuning in. And we encourage you to do so again tomorrow morning when you open your eyes. Remember, if you'd like to contact us, if you have comments, questions, things that you'd just like to let us know, just send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYE Belize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.